Welcome to NHP's On Your Mind, a special 8-part series on 99 FM where we engage with various healthcare professionals to unpack a number of extremely relevant topics related to the well-being of Namibians. We will also be addressing the mental, psychological, and physical attributes of the points at issue and share valuable information and advice to the Namibian public. Ute, thank you so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure, Sibo.
So let's jump straight into it. What was the impact of this disruptive year, especially on the mental health of people, the general public, parents, employees, but specifically on the children?
Okay, I don't think we can really focus specifically just on children because in general, this year or 2020 had an impact on everybody.
True.
And because as adults are raising children are basically mini adults. So basically whatever the adult is feeling, the child is feeling. And I think what happened with COVID is, my assistant recently had a baby, actually at the beginning of the whole lockdowns and stuff. And I was thinking the other day with my husband was saying that, this child is going to grow up, like spending her whole first year thinking that human beings are these strange things that just keep distance from each other, which is not natural because we are social beings. We love touching and interacting.
Exactly.
And there's a certain thing about that intimacy that's necessary for healthy development and healthy attachments, etc., and independence. As much as we want to be independent, we need human touch and we need that contact. And 2020 kind of disrupted that. So what we are feeling post-2020 is a lot of, we feel lost, we feel uncertain. We are not sure about what to expect. We are anxious because uncertainty breeds anxiety and anxiety then breeds stress, which impact on a lot of our areas of life. Some people obviously have lost family members, they have lost workmates, and this impacts on us because once there is death impacts us, that we change our worldview.
Yes.
We change the way we have the outlook that we have on life. For some people, it makes them appreciate things more. So COVID can also be, it depends on your view. You can also start appreciating life more. You can start appreciating relationships more. So 2020 cannot just be as a blanket looked at as being a bad year, as having impacted us badly. So it can have good and it can have bad.
You said something interesting, what your husband said about, the newborn seeing that, maybe human beings are supposed to stay away. Let's talk specifically about children then.
Yes.
How does the disruption, the isolation and insecurity affect the mental health of children?
There was a lot of frustration. Even from personal experience, my 7-year-old son, I think literally broke 3 or 4 things, windows and doors and everything in my house because they are frustrated because children learn interaction from school, from their mates, and being told that you cannot interact with your playmates, you cannot go on play dates, sleepovers, etc. You can't touch anything. It impacts on them and it creates frustration in them and it also creates depression, etc. And it can also cause tantrums and outbursts, etc. On the other hand, it was also not very effective for children because children build their immunity through eating dirty things, touching their faces, etc. And now you don't allow the child, you kind of have to try and keep this child in a sterile environment. That's going to make the child more prone to becoming ill, getting normal other sicknesses that the child would have built an immunity to.
Oh, wow.
So there's a lot of different aspects to consider. And also having the child having to stay home with a parent that has to feed them, look after them, and now had to teach them,
school.
That creates a lot of hostility between the child and the parent as well, because all of a sudden this parent has to become the teacher, has to scold, has to reprimand and do all of that. And that's a very difficult situation, even for the child, because the child does not know where does parenting start and the teaching, etc. So one of the things that was very important during 2020 that I think many people realized that it is a necessity is structure and routine. A lot of the parents did not realize how necessary it is. It's not just something that became important during the COVID era, if I should call it that. But in general, it's very important for children to have a good structure. For the parents to realize that the child needs to sleep a specific amount of time. For instance, a 3-year-old should actually be in bed 10 hours in the night. Yeah. Okay. But parents forget this. And you don't realize that if the child doesn't sleep enough, the child is cranky in the morning, the child will throw more tantrums. If the child doesn't rest during the day, this happens, that happens. So we had to become jack of all trades, because not all of us are teachers and parents, and have instincts. And that created a lot of frustration. In terms of the children, it was also very difficult. This year, I am sitting in therapy with a lot of children who suffered from emotionally, because they were left at home and they had to do their own online learning, etc. This could be preteens, teenagers, etc. And they ended up failing. And that affects your self-esteem, because you're like, maybe I'm not as clever. Yes, they are great at video games and PS games, etc. But when it comes to online learning, they were not very good, and then they end up having to repeat grades, etc. The parents end up scolding the child because you didn't do this and you are not studying or you're not spending your time effectively. Yet the child doesn't know how, because online, even switching over from, for instance, working from an office, face-to-face meetings, to having to work from home and doing online meetings is a difficult adjustment, even for an adult. Even for adults who know how to use computers and social media, etc., doing online meetings and managing their own time could be stressful and was an adjustment. Now, for some children, without the required help, because the parent does not even know the necessity of, how exactly to help structure and discipline the child, it is very difficult, because the child might end up feeling that they are not as clever, their self-esteem might be affected because the friend might be doing better, they don't know how to manage their own time. And even as an adult, in offices, we are sent for time management training, etc. Now we expected our children to manage their own time, to discipline themselves, etc. Because people switched from the child can all of a sudden sleep until 8 in the morning. That doesn't make sense. You expect the child, when school is there, to wake up at 6. The child should be doing that. You as the parent should be supporting the child to do that. So post-2020, I sit with a lot of children that struggle to pick up where they left off, with their esteem, with their confidence, because it has really been impacted. It's been difficult in terms of managing friendships, managing relationships. If it's difficult for an adult, imagine how difficult it is for a child. Yeah. So those are the fears that, or the impacts that 2020 had on a lot of us. I think earlier I mentioned that 2020 and COVID has not necessarily only had a negative impact on everybody, because I think once we are allowed to interact with each other again, once we were allowed to meet and socialize again, you realize and appreciate friendships again. You realize and appreciate how much you missed people and what you should be saying to people. I think in December alone, a lot of families lost so many people that they appreciate and understand how important it is to have quality time with people.
But now, Ute, in the interim now,
yes.
You've mentioned so many disruptions, from tantrums to self-esteem, being jarred because they're not being able to switch. How do we repair the damage? Because we don't just come back into society and everything is hunky-dory as if it was before. So how do we transition our kids and even ourselves back?
I think part of it is, we need to realize that every experience that we go through as an individual, as a nation, as human beings, we should look back and reflect and see what we can learn and keep and adapt from that. So one thing that I would say we need to keep from that is we need to slow down. We need to be more appreciative, and we need to understand that we need to do more. I think in 2019, we were rushed, we were running, we didn't realize, even in our offices, even in our schools, we were wasting so much time, we were wasting so much resources. Imagine how much we can do, imagine how much we can teach our children ourselves. Parents need to realize that even though you send the child to school, you need to be actively involved in teaching and educating that child every day. So how do you get back? Is you send the child to school, you go to work, but then when you come back, you still spend quality time checking, chatting, how are you, how have you been? We talk about death because our children at the ages of 3, 5, 10 have really been exposed to a lot of death. Whether it is an uncle or somebody within the close immediate family who passed away, or whether they've been reading about it. Every day you switch on the news and you are being told about the death toll. COVID has claimed how many lives? 3-year-olds are becoming aware of this. So what is it? Where did who go? Why is that person not there? What does COVID mean? My 3-year-old was saying the other day, Corona says don't touch your face. You know? So you can give these mantras and you can say wash your hands and all of that, but making sure that they understand what it means. Also, another very good thing that I was saying that, I'm so excited that now we've got COVID and we have to wash our hands. That is basic hygiene that we should be practicing. So we should keep that.
Within or without COVID,
yes. And I mean, death is something that is amongst us, regardless. And I think what the government is asking us, keeping social distance is anyway a good thing. You know, in general, we shouldn't be afraid of touching each other, but we should respect each other's boundaries and we should respect each other's space. That's something good that we can remember. Washing our hands, that's something good that we can remember. So we should reflect and keep the good that we have gone through in the past year. On the other hand, I mean, it's been very disruptive in terms of the economy, etc. In terms of children not being able to go to class, play with each other. So what we can do is make sure that we understand and respect our government even in terms of what they're trying to do with the vaccine and not be so negative. Because negativity is just going to steal from you and it's going to just rob you from life. Yeah, let's rather focus in terms of going forward on the good that there is, the hope that there is, so that we can take the vaccine, we can keep practicing hygiene, we can keep practicing good communication and relationships and give each other attention. I just hope that as soon as possible we can have all, like in the support for the people that are living in poverty, etc., be opened up again.
Yes.
Because that is something that, COVID has really, really disrupted, soup kitchens, people being able to go places and receive things, So that is something that is, we are hoping that the vaccine and the government can get things moving ahead so that we can return to what we used to call normal.
Yeah, now it's the new normal.
The new normal, but keeping a little bit of
what we've learned during this phase.
What we have been forced
to learn. That's it for part 1 of 2 of NHP's On Your Mind, where I spoke to Ute Sinkala, where we delved into the Corona blues. What are we thinking and feeling post-2020? Join us again in part 2, where we delve deeper into this very important topic.